Greetings, this is iVideo. My name is John Savers. I'm your host, and today we'll continue with our look to World War II, the camps. As you know, many of you, iVideo is a program which looks at history broadly defined and tries to uncover information generally not available or unknown to the viewing public. Generally not touched upon by the educational establishment, public or private, or the general media. We hope that this effort proves educational. We think that the information we provide will give the viewer a broader, deeper, rounder understanding of the situation. And to that end, we feel comfortable with our effort. We are sometimes assailed in regard to our sources, but we're very comfortable with our sources. Some have actually been attacked in courts in foreign countries and been vindicated. So at least vindicated in the sense that the data provided has been acknowledged by the prosecution as being, for the most part, correct, and only some minor quibbling here and there of no great consequence to discuss. So I'm quite comfortable with the material sources I've used, and I do encourage you and the professional historians, particularly the revisionist historians. I encourage you to support their effort. I'm sure that the politicians will not do so without a prodding. And I think it's just would be very meaningful if we could once and for all settle this thing called the Holocaust in a reasonable way, this understanding of the camp, what actually happened, the nature of the beast, as it were, because the finger of guilt has gone beyond the German regime and its personnel to the German people and now to Christianity itself, and I think this is quite unacceptable. So we do encourage the effort to get to the bottom of it, and we certainly do not maintain that this is the last word on the subject, but a piece of the impel toward finding the complete bottom line, as it were, of this whole matter. So, having said that, let's get to the subject at hand, the recapitulation, which we are in the process of doing to bring this series to an end. So please consider. United States Holocaust Memorial Museum Membership Committee, Post Office Box 90988, Washington, D.C. Dear friend, each time I open my wallet and see this card, I am reminded that I belong to a very special community of people, men and women who have stepped forward to help remember and memorialize the 6 million Jews and millions of others who died in the Holocaust, and to warn future generations of the unspeakable horror that can result when the values of civilization and humanity break down. Sincerely, Miles Lerman, Chairman. Professional Holocaust fundraising organizations such as the Simon Wiesenthal Center insist on maintaining the higher figure because to them it sounds better. Nevertheless, the entire story has now been undermined. This is a citation from The Truth at Last, issue number 385, pages 1 and 2. More recently, Walter Reich, former director of the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, jumped into the debate over Auschwitz On September 8, 1998, the Washington Post published an article by Reich. Reich was responding to what he described as a well-meaning August 31, 1998 editorial in the Post about the affair. Reich commented that the editorial illustrates how old fictions about Auschwitz have been accepted as facts, fictions that have been used repeatedly to distort the camp's history. Evidently, the Post had forgotten its own report on the Auschwitz numbers that it had published 3 years previously and chose instead to repeat old fictions accepted as facts. Here's what Reich had to say. The Post identified Auschwitz-Birkenau as the death camp where 3 million Jews and millions of others were murdered by the Nazis. Recent scholarship by a Polish historian has put the number of deaths there conservatively at 1.1 million, with other estimates ranging to about 1.5 million. Approximately 90% of the dead were Jews. Honest people find no problem with Reich's call in the essay for only words of accurate history in reportage about Auschwitz. This is a citation from the Barnes Review, September-October 1999, page 60. Auschwitz, the Final Count, examines the new reports in the mainstream media and provides essential additional facts that must be considered in order for the full story of Auschwitz to finally be told. The book features a fascinating introduction by Bird exploring the little-known but thoroughly documented phenomenon in which the numbers of the official Auschwitz death toll have plummeted from a high of 9 million dead to a rock bottom of 73,137, of whom 38,031 were Jews. And readers will note that of the 26 widely varying figures cited by Bird, all come from a variety of responsible and mainstream sources. No figure Bird cites comes from any source accused of denying the Holocaust, whatever that means. Clearly, the number of people who died at Auschwitz is central to understanding what did happen there, but the figures keep changing. This is a citation from the Barnes Review, September-October 1999, pages 60-61. In 1988, Fred A. Luter, the leading American authority on the construction of gas chambers for use in capital punishment in the American justice system, carried out extensive scientific studies of the alleged gas chambers that are shown to visiting tourists as a place where 6 million died, or whatever the favorite figure happened to be at the time. In the end, however, after extensive forensic examination, Luter reached conclusions that surprised even him. Here's Luter's own summary of his far more comprehensive scientific findings. None of the facilities examined at Auschwitz, Birkenau, or Lublin could have supported, or in fact did support, multiple executions utilizing hydrogen cyanide, carbon monoxide, or any other allegedly or factually lethal gas. Based upon very generous maximum usage rates, all the alleged gas chambers, totaling 1,692 persons per week, and assuming these facilities could support gas executions, it would have required 68 years to execute the alleged number of 6 million of persons. Construction of these facilities further shows that they were never used as gas chambers. None of these facilities was ever sealed or gasketed. No provision was ever made to prevent condensation of gas on the walls, floor, or ceiling. No provision ever existed to exhaust the air-gas mixture from these buildings. No provision ever existed to introduce or distribute the gas throughout the chamber. No explosion-proof lighting existed, and no attempt was ever made to prevent gas from entering the crematories, even though the gas is highly explosive. No attempt was made to protect operating personnel from exposure to the gas or to protect other non-participating persons from exposure. Specifically, at Auschwitz, a floor drain in the alleged gas chamber was connected directly to the camp's storm drain system. At Majdanek, a depressed walkway around the alleged gas chambers would have collected gas seepage and resulted in a death trap for camp personnel. No exhaust stacks ever existed. Hydrogen cyanide gas is an extremely dangerous and lethal gas. Plain and simple, these facilities could not have operated as execution gas chambers. For courageously publishing his scientific findings in his now internationally famous Luder report, Luder found himself a victim of the most incredible smear campaign imaginable. Hounded by Jewish terror buns and levied with trumped-up state criminal charges in his home state for informally having described himself as an engineer, although he didn't have a license as such. The nation's leading authority on techniques of capital punishment was driven out of business. Additionally, his marriage was ruined, and he was forced to leave his native state. This is a citation from the Facts and the Myths about the Holocaust, pages 23-24. And parenthetically, I can confirm that smear campaigns have not ended with Mr. Luder. History books tell us that there were as many as 10,000 to 20,000 corpses cremated in the ovens and in open pits at Auschwitz during the summer of 1944 alone. However, in April of 1988, Ivan Lagash, manager of a large crematory in Calgary, Canada, obviously an expert on cremation, testified in court that this was simply impossible. That such large numbers could have been cremated daily, he said, was preposterous and beyond the realm of reality. This is a citation from the Facts and the Myths about the Holocaust, page 12. Additionally, and in the same vein, attend. Crematoria are installations with precise limits. An almost complete documentation of the crematoria of Auschwitz I and Birkenau exists because the archives of the building supervisors fell into Soviet hands. The Italian revisionist Carlo Matano, with the cooperation of 2 engineers, has researched this question for years. His conclusions are irrefutable. The theoretical maximal capacity for all 5 crematoria was 1,248 corpses per day. Cremas 2 and 3 were in operation for 971 days, Cremas 4 and 5 for 359 days, and the small crematorium in the original camp was discontinued in 1943. Altogether, 300,000 corpses could have been incinerated in all the crematoria, but since the fire brickwork was never renovated, a theoretical maximal figure of incinerations would be 162,000. Additionally, the coke, that's coal, supplies for the ovens was adequate only for the incineration of the registered deaths, approximately 160,000 to 170,000 during this period. All these calculations are substantiated by the fact that the average time for a corpse to be incinerated is 60 to 80 minutes. In today's crematoria, an average of 3 to 5 corpses per day and unit are incinerated. Altogether, these figures correspond to the death ledges in which the fatalities were listed. The existing mortuary register, with a few gaps, runs until the end of 1943 and indicates 66,000 fatalities. This is a citation from the Barnes Review, July-August 1998, page 11. Well, now, don't flip your wig hat over this, but it's pretty amazing, astonishing stuff. I'll call your attention to it. I think it's well that you consider it, so please. Due to the typhus epidemics during the last weeks of the war, the crematoria ovens could not handle the number of corpses or broke down for lack of maintenance. Acts of sabotage cannot be excluded. Naturally, the war propaganda had a field day with these photos. This is a citation from the Barnes Review, July-August 1998, page 11. Well, get a grip on your chair. Mainly the typhus epidemics, but also the harsh living conditions and the maltreatment the prisoners suffered more often from their fellow inmates than from the SS. This is a citation from the Barnes Review, July-August 1998, page 10. Typhus is an infectious disease which often rages when large numbers of people are forced to live together under crowded and unsanitary conditions. An example is the case of Rwanda in 1994. The disease is mainly carried by lice. This is a citation from the Barnes Review, July and August 1998, page 10. Zyklon B, which is the manufacturer's name for hydrocyanic acid, was and is still used to combat vermin. During the war, this product was consistently scarce in Germany. It is a paradox that possibly many inmates would have survived if the Germans would have had more Zyklon B. During the catastrophic last months of the war, constant bombings and a lack of needed vital supplies meant the usual delousing process could not be carried out, a cause of the typhus epidemics in many camps. The terrible photos are known worldwide. This is a citation from the Barnes Review, July-August 1998, page 10. Occasionally, books by former concentration camp inmates appear which present a totally different picture of the conditions prevailing in them, such as Under Two Dictators, London, 1949, by Margaret Buber. She was a woman who had experienced several years in the brutal and primitive conditions of a Russian prison camp before being sent to Ravensbrück, the German camp for women detainees, in August 1940. She noted that she was the only person in her contingent of deportees from Russia who was not straight away released by the Gestapo. Her book presents a striking contrast between the camps of Soviet Russia and Germany. Compared to the squalor, disorder, and starvation of the Russian camp, she found Ravensbrück to be clean, civilized, and well administered. Regular baths and clean linen seemed a luxury after her earlier experiences, and her first meal of white bread, sausage, sweet porridge, and dried fruit prompted her to inquire of another camp inmate whether August 3, 1940 was some sort of holiday or special occasion. She observed, too, that the barracks at Ravensbrück were remarkably spacious compared to the crowded mud hut of the Soviet camp. In the final months of 1945, she experienced the progressive decline of camp conditions. This is a citation from Did 6 Million Really Die? Page 20. Well, get a grip on your chair. The following information is pretty amazing, I think. But please consider. Another account which is at total variance with popular propaganda is Die Gestapo Lost Bitten. The Gestapo Invites You, by Charlotte Bormann, a communist political prisoner who was also interned at Ravensbrück. Undoubtedly, its most important revelation is the author's statement that rumors of gas executions were deliberate and malicious inventions circulated among the prisoners by the communists. This is a citation from "Did 6 million really die?" page 20. Be that as it may, and it certainly seems that the camps were fairly decent as such things go, and that the internees were given at least some creature comforts. Let's pass on now to the trials, the Nuremberg trials, in which German political operatives and German officer corps was called to task for, at least in part, the alleged atrocities in these camps. So please consider. The story of the 6 million was given judicial authority at the Nuremberg trials of German leaders between 1945 and 1949, proceedings which proved to be the most disgraceful legal farce in history. For a far more detailed study of the iniquities of these trials, which, as Field Marshal Montgomery said, made it a crime to lose a war, the reader is referred to the works cited below, and particularly to the outstanding book Advance to Barbarism, Nelson, 1953, by the distinguished English lawyer F.J.P. Veal. This is a citation from Did 6 million really die? Page 9. Please note, should anyone be misled into believing that the extermination of the Jews was proved at Nuremberg by evidence, he should consider the nature of the trials themselves, based as they were on a total disregard of sound legal principles of any kind. The victors were putting on trial the vanquished. The rules of evidence developed by British jurisprudence over the centuries in order to arrive at the truth of a charge with as much certainty as possible were entirely disregarded at Nuremberg. It was decreed that the tribunal should not be bound by technical rules of evidence, but could admit any evidence which it deemed to have probative value, that is, would support a conviction. In practice, this meant the admittance of hearsay evidence and documents which in a normal judicial trial are always rejected as untrustworthy. That such evidence was allowed is of profound significance because it was one of the principal methods by which the extermination legend was fabricated through fraudulent written affidavits. This is a citation from Did 6 million really die? Page 9. Please attend. Altogether more disturbing, however, were the methods employed to extract statements and confessions at Nuremberg, particularly those from SS officers which were used to support the extermination charge. The American Senator Joseph McCarthy, in a statement given to the American press on May 20, 1949, drew attention to the following cases of torture to secure such confessions. In the prison of Schwäbisch Hall, he stated, officers of the SS Leibstandarte Adolf Hitler were flogged until they were soaked in blood, after which their sexual organs were trampled on as they lay prostrate on the ground. As in the notorious Malmedy trials of private soldiers, the prisoners were hoisted in the air and beaten until they signed the confessions demanded of them. Despite the fact that confessions pertaining to the extermination of the Jews were extracted under these conditions, Nuremberg statements are still regarded as conclusive evidence for the 6 million by writers like Reitlinger and others, and the illusion is maintained that the trials were both impartial and impeccably fair. Citation from Did 6 million really die? Page 10. Well, now, for many of you, World War II is ancient history and perhaps something of a bore, but as I've tried to indicate throughout this series, these events of World War II are with us very much today, and the ramifications, particularly of the camps and what has become known as a Holocaust. This is an event which caused a great slanderous finger-pointing at the political regime of the Nazis and the officer corps of the military of Germany, and subsequently to the entire German people, and subsequently to Christianity itself. So that this thing remains with us, and we have to come to grips with it and understand it and put it once and for all to historical rest with an accurate understanding of events. Well, that's it. That's a wrap. That's all she wrote. We're out of time. This is iVideo. My name is John Savers. I'm your host. This is the last of our series on World War II, the camps. I hope you found them interesting, thought-provoking, educational, worth seeing. We certainly enjoyed presenting the information to you, and pleased that you could watch. We hope to have you look at our next series, which we hope to have before you not too long, which we plan to have also interesting and a little bit unusual. But at any rate, we do look forward to seeing you again. Until such time,